An old man was walking in the desert with his donkey when he reached a village. The people welcomed him with everything they could, offering him hospitality, taking care of his donkey and feeding him. While having dinner, he was surprised to be offered camel milk, as it is of notoriously bad taste. He thus asked about it and was told that the village has been cursed with an everlasting drought, and that the people have resorted to saving however little water they could find for crops. "Truth be told, I am one of the wise," he said. "I know how to bring you rain. However, you must first bring me a wide bucket full of water, for I need some to bring more." The next morning, all of the villagers heard of his saying and started collecting every drop of water they still had in reserve. In the end, there was barely enough to qualify for a bucket, and they gave it to the man. He then took the water and walked within his host's house. There, he took off his dirty clothes and started washing them. A curious one of the kids saw him through the window and went on to alert everyone around him. By the time they arrived, angry and shouting, it was already too late. The old man had washed all his clothes and was calmly hanging them. "Shame, shame on you, old man, for wasting our water when our kids don't have enough to drink," growled the chief. But as soon as he finished speaking, the sky darkened as the clouds gathered around the village. It started raining, and it did not stop for 5 days straight. People got their fill, and everyone's reserves were overflowing. The old man was treated as a guest of honor and a hero, and the chief apologized profusely for ever doubting him. Only when he was about to leave did the kid gather the courage to ask about how he did it. "It's simple," said the old man. "This always happens when I hang my clothes to dry." 3. A young man wanted to get his beautiful blonde wife, Susie, something nice for their first wedding anniversary. So he decided to buy her a cell phone. He showed her the phone and explained all of its features to her. Susie was excited to receive the gift and simply adored her new phone. The next day, Susie went shopping. Her phone rang, and to her astonishment, it was her husband on the other end. "Hi, Susie," he said. "How do you like your new phone?" Susie replied, "I just love it. It's so small, and your voice is clear as a bell, but there's one thing I don't understand, though." "What's that, sweetie?" asked her husband. "How did you know I was at Walmart?" 4. Many years ago, a man was traveling through the mountains of Switzerland. Nightfall was rapidly approaching, and he had nowhere to sleep. He went up to a farmhouse and asked the farmer if he could spend the night. The farmer told him that he could sleep in the barn. As the story goes, the farmer's daughter asked her father, "Who is that man going into the barn?" "That fellow is traveling through," said the farmer. "He needs a place to stay for the night, so I told him he could sleep in the barn." The daughter said, "Perhaps he is hungry." So she prepared a plate of food for him and then took it out to the barn. About an hour later, the daughter returned. Her clothing was disheveled and straw was in her hair. Straight up to bed she went. The farmer's wife was very observant. She then suggested that perhaps the man was thirsty. So she fetched a bottle of wine, took it out to the barn, and she too did not return for an hour. Her clothing was askew, and her blouse was buttoned incorrectly. She also headed straight to bed. The next morning at sunrise, the man in the barn got up and continued on his journey, waving to the farmer as he left. When the daughter awoke and learned that the visitor was gone, she broke into tears. "How could he leave without even saying goodbye?" she cried. We made such passionate love last night." "What?" shouted the father as he angrily ran out of the house looking for the man, who by now was halfway up the mountain. The farmer screamed up at him, "I'm going to get you. Slept with my daughter." The man looked back down from the mountainside, cupped his hand next to his mouth, and yelled out, "Laid the oladee too." A woman, cranky because her husband was late coming home again, decided to leave a note saying, "I've had enough and have left you. Don't bother coming after me." Then she hid under the bed to see his reaction. After a short while, the husband comes home, and she can hear him in the kitchen before he comes into the bedroom. She could see him walk towards the dresser and pick up the note. After a few minutes, he wrote something on it before picking up the phone and calling someone. "She's finally gone." "Yeah, I know about time. I'm coming to see you. Put on that French nightie. I love you. I can't wait to see you. We'll do all the naughty things you like." He hung up, grabbed his keys, and left. She heard the car drive off as she came out from under the bed. Seething with rage and tears in her eyes, she grabbed the note to see what he wrote. "I can see your feet. We're out of bread. Be back in 5 minutes. 6. One day, in an effort to stir up a class full of listless students, Loretta asked the students to each come up and put on the blackboard something that had caused a lot of excitement around their houses lately. She called on Nancy. Nancy went up to the board and drew a flower, stating that the flowers they'd planted that spring were all blooming, and that was causing a lot of excitement around their house. Loretta said, "That's very nice, Nancy." Next, she calls on little Timmy, who goes up to the board and draws a stick figure of an animal. "What kind of animal is that?" asks Loretta. "That's a puppy," says Timmy. "We just got one of those, and it's caused a lot of excitement around our house lately." "That's very nice, Timmy," she replies. "Who wants to go next?" Little Johnny is waving more than ever. Finally, unable to ignore him any longer, Loretta says, "Okay, Johnny, you're next." Little Johnny goes up to the front of the classroom and draws a single dot on the board. "What's that?" she asks, afraid of what the answer is going to be. "That's a period," answers little Johnny. "My sister's missed 2 of those, and you can bet that's caused a lot of excitement around our house." 7. Bubba and Billy Bob were known for having quite a bit below average smarts around Little Rock. One day, in the Little Rock Walmart, they decided to get in on the weekly charity raffle. They each bought 5 tickets for $1 a pop. The following week, when the raffle was drawn, each had won a prize. Billy Bob won first place with a year's supply of gourmet spaghetti sauce and extra long spaghetti. Bubba won the 6th prize, a toilet brush. About a week or so had passed when the men met back at Walmart. Bubba asked Billy Bob how he liked his prize, to which Billy Bob replied, "Great, I love spaghetti." Billy Bob asked Bubba, "How about you? How's the toilet brush?" "Not so good," replied Bubba. "I reckon I'm going to switch back to paper." 8. A big city lawyer went duck hunting in rural North Alberta. He shot and dropped a bird, but it fell into a farmer's field on the other side of a fence. As the lawyer climbed over the fence, an elderly farmer drove up on his tractor and asked him what he was doing. The litigator responded, "I shot a duck, and it fell in this field, and now I'm going to retrieve it." The old farmer, Peter, replied, "This is my property, and you are not coming over here." The indignant lawyer said, "I am one of the best trial lawyers in Canada, and if you don't let me get that duck, I'll sue you and take everything you own." The old farmer smiled and said, "Apparently, you don't know how we settle disputes in Alberta. We settle small disagreements like this with the 3-kick rule." The lawyer asked, "What is the 3-kick rule?" The farmer replied, "Well, because the dispute occurs on my land, I get to go first. I kick you 3 times, and then you kick me 3 times, and so on back and forth until someone gives up." The lawyer thought about the proposed contest and decided that he could easily take the old codger. He agreed to abide by the local custom. The old farmer slowly climbed down from the tractor and walked up to the attorney. His first kick planted the toe of his heavy steel-toed work boot into the lawyer's groin and dropped him to his knees. His second kick to the midriff sent the lawyer's last meal gushing from his mouth. The lawyer was on all fours when the farmer's third kick to his rear end sent him face first into a fresh cow pie. Summoning every bit of his will and remaining strong, the lawyer very slowly managed to get to his feet. Wiping his face with the arm of his jacket, he said, "Okay, you old fart, now it's my turn." The old farmer smiled and said, "You can have the duck." It was little Johnny's first day at a new school, so his father looked up the teacher. He told her that little Johnny was a good kid, but that he was an avid gambler. He warned her that little Johnny might win lunch money from the other kids if he was not watched closely. The teacher did not seem disturbed and assured the father that she had handled many such problems and was very capable of taking care of little Johnny's urge to gamble. Shortly after lunch, the father called the teacher and asked her how things were going. "Oh, everything is going very well," she said. "I think I may have cured little Johnny of his gambling habit." The father asked her what had happened. "The little tyke absolutely insisted on betting me $10 that had a mole on my rear," she said. "I finally agreed to the bet and took him to the teacher's lounge to show him that I had no mole." The father said, "He bet me $50 this morning that he would see the teacher's mole before the day was over." 10. A nun was praying when the priest approached her. The priest lightly tapped the nun on the shoulder and asked her to follow him. The priest walked away, and the nun quickly followed, not far behind him. They arrived in a room behind the church. The priest went inside the room and gestured for the nun to do the same. "Sister, close the door," said the priest. "Jesus, if something ever happens, please forgive my soul." Praying, the nun. "Sister Locket," said the priest. "Jesus, if something ever happens, please forgive my soul," prayed the nun. "Sister, close the window curtains," said the priest. "Jesus, if something ever happens, please forgive my soul," prayed the nun. "Sister, close the lights." The priest said, "Jesus, if something ever happens, please forgive my soul." "Sister, come here beside me." The priest said, "Jesus, I'm sorry for what is about to happen. Please forgive my soul in heaven," prayed the nun. "Sister, look at my watch. It glows in the dark." 11. 2 nuns are walking down the street when they notice that a man is following them. Sister Michael, the older and wiser nun, says to the young and naive Sister Patrick, "See that crossroad ahead? You go left and I'll go right. He can't follow us both. We'll meet back at the Abbey." So the sisters part, and the man follows Sister Michael. Some time later, Sister Patrick is anxiously waiting at the Abbey when Sister Michael returns alone. "Thank the Lord, you are all right," exclaimed Sister Patrick. "But what happened to that man?" "Well," replies Sister Michael, "after a few minutes I stopped and pulled up my dress." Sister Patrick stares in shock. "Then," continues Sister Michael, "he stopped and pulled down his trousers." Sister Patrick gasps, "Oh, sister, why would you let him do that?" "Because," explains Sister Michael, "a nun with her dress up can run faster than a man with his trousers down." A nun, badly needing to use the restroom, walked into a local hostel. The place was hopping with music and loud conversation, and every once in a while the lights would turn off. Each time the lights would go out, the place would erupt into cheers. However, when the revelers saw the nun, the room went dead silent. She walked up to the bartender and asked, "May I please use the restroom?" The bartender replied, "Okay, but I should warn you that there is a statue of a naked man in there wearing only a fig leaf." "Well, in that case, I'll just look the other way," said the nun. So the bartender showed the nun to the back of the restaurant. After a few minutes, she came back out, and the whole place stopped just long enough to give the nun a loud round of applause. She went to the bartender and said, "Sir, I don't understand. Why did they applaud for me just because I went to the restroom?" "Well, now they know you're one of us," said the bartender. "Would you like a drink?" "But I still don't understand," said the puzzled nun. "You see," laughed the bartender, "every time someone lifts the fig leaf on that statue, the lights go out. Now how about that drink?" 13. A few minutes before the services started, the townspeople were sitting in their pews and talking. Suddenly, Satan appeared at the front of the church. Everyone started screaming and running for the front entrance, trampling each other in a frantic effort to get away from evil incarnate. Soon everyone had exited the church except for one elderly gentleman who sat calmly in his pew without moving, seeming oblivious to the fact that God's ultimate enemy was in his presence. So Satan walked up to the old man and said, "Don't you know who I am?" The man replied, "Yep, sure do." "Aren't you afraid of me?" Satan asked. "Nope, sure ain't," said the man. "Don't you realize I can kill you with a word?" asked Satan. "Don't doubt it for a minute," returned the old man in an even tone. "Did you know that I could cause you profound, horrifying physical agony for all eternity?" persisted Satan. "Yep," was the calm reply. "And you're still not afraid?" asked Satan. "Nope." More than a little perturbed, Satan asked, "Well, why aren't you afraid of me?" The man calmly replied, "Been married to your sister for the last 48 years.